Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Onaifo. Welcome to Excel 2016. In this program, I am going to take you through a series of topics in Excel, starting from the beginner topics to intermediate topics and then on to advanced topics in the application. So if you're new to Excel or you have some knowledge of the program or you are an advanced user, I promise there'll be something for you here. The screen you're looking at is the Start screen. To get to the Start screen, you click on the Windows icon on the bottom left-hand corner and scroll down to letter E to find Excel and click on it to get started. Or go to the Windows search bar at the bottom of the screen, click on it. If you have Excel open previously, it will be populated along with other applications. If not, type Excel and the Excel application icon will appear. Click on it to get started. Once you start Excel, you will be provided with this Start screen. The Start screen consists of two panes, the left pane and the right pane. The left pane is characterized by this bold green color. Also, you find recently used workbooks displayed here. You don't see any at the moment, either because I have not used Excel recently or I have cleared my recently used workbooks. The other thing to take note of is the Open Other Workbooks link. This link will take you to the workbook stored in your computer or stored in other locations but is accessible through your computer. The right hand pane is obviously the busier here. Here you find templates. Templates are pre-formatted, pre-prepared as I would like to call them, for you to get started, especially if you have limited time or limited skill to complete your project. Let's say, for example, you're looking to prepare an invoice and you don't have a lot of time to do fanciful work in Excel. You can come over to the template, find Simple Invoice, click on it, and start entering your data. Let's say you work for an organization. The manager calls you to the office and says, hey, could you please help us prepare the monthly budget for our organization for this month? With limited knowledge and limited time, you're wondering, how am I going to accomplish this? Not to worry. Come over to here and then find an appropriate template for you. For example, the monthly company budget template. Click on it and start to enter your data, and that will get you started. You might be thinking, hey man, I know what you're saying and this is really nice, but what happens if I can't find a specific template that meets my specific need and I do not have the time and I have limited skill, as you put it? What do I do then? I will tell you to take the advice right in front of your screen. Right here at the bottom here, it says not finding what you're looking for. Use the search box at the top to find more templates. Aha! So let's follow that advice. If we come over here to the search bar and click on it, we can find other templates online. Let's say, for example, education related templates. Type that in there and click search. And here we go. We have education related templates. Are you looking to prepare a semester calendar? Are you looking to prepare a weekly attendance report or student randomizer, whatever that means? You can find additional education related templates here. Another interesting thing to note in this page is on the right hand side. Here you have categories of templates. You can click on any of these categories to get to additional templates. But I want you to understand that these templates are not all Excel based. If you look at the bottom here, it says search results from your other Office applications. So the numbers you see here are not only Excel based, but they are all other Office application based. For example, Visio 29. If I click on the menu behind it right here, it shows me all the Visio related templates. The same with Microsoft Word. There you go. There you go. Access, just one. Publisher, 7. PowerPoint, 80. The point is that these templates that are provided through search are not only Excel based. It will be important to remember that. So let's go back. Now that we've talked about the templates and we've talked about the search bar, I want you to look at the bottom of the information provided under the search bar. It says suggested searches. These suggested searches are just similar to the template categories that we looked at. If we click on one of them, let's say the business category, it is going to populate business related templates. Again, looking at the right hand side, you see that template categories have been provided. And looking at the bottom, you also see search result for your other Office applications. The other thing that I want you to also take note of here in this start screen are the tutorials. Excel, in order to make things a little bit easier for you, provides you with elementary tutorial or basic tutorials to get you started. There's this take a tour, almost like a welcome tutorial. There's formula tutorial, pivot table tutorial, Power Query tutorial, and so on and so on. When we started talking about this right pane, we started with the fact that you are provided with templates and that templates allow you to get started. However, in our case, for this tutorial, we don't want templates. We don't want any pre-formatted or pre-laid out work. We just want to start from the scratch. In order to start from the scratch, we use the blank workbook. Let's click on that and see what we get. There you go. For most of you, you're familiar with this. This is the Excel user interface. The Excel user interface comprise or contains or have all the commands and all the tools that you need to complete your Excel project. Before we explore this interface, I want you to take a minute to go back and review how we opened Excel and got to this place. As a reminder, we went to the bottom of the screen and clicked on Start, and there we found Excel and clicked on it. For others, you may have gone to the search bar at the bottom and typed Excel to get you started. Either way, you found yourself here. Take a minute to explore that again, and then meet me on the other side. Welcome back to Excel 2016. If you're new to Excel, this user interface can be quite intimidating with all the arrangement of tools and commands in a way that seems chaotic. It can be quite frightening. However, there is a pattern to the chaos. Trust me, there is. Excel is a tab-based system, which means the commands and tools are arranged based on the tabs. For example, we have the Home tab, the Insert tab, Page Layout, Formulas, Data, Review, View, Help. The Home tab, for example, is comprised of different command groups that are delineated with this thin line right here. The first command group is the Clipboard command group. The Clipboard command group has related commands that perform related functions. Cut, copy, and paste are all related. If you're familiar with Microsoft Office applications or any other application for that matter, I'm sure you know this. Thereafter, we have the Font command group that consists of bold, italic, underline, font style, size, and color. As I mentioned before, these related commands perform related functions. Beyond that, we have the alignment command group that tells us how to place our data within the cell. Do we want to align right, center, or left? The number command group is also there, the styles command group, cells command group, and editing command group. The important point to take here is that this tab is organized based on command groups, and each command group has different related commands. That is the Home tab, but the same is the Insert tab, the Page Layer tab, the Formula tabs, the Data tab, the Review tab, and the View tab, as well as the Help tab. They all have command groups that consist of different commands within each command group. Now that we've seen the structure of the commands, there is more here. If you look up to the right hand side, you see a couple of buttons right here. The close button, the maximize or restore button depending on where you are in the application, and the minimize button. We also have something interesting, something that I feel that a lot of people don't use enough, but if you are struggling with a small screen, this is probably going to be your best friend. The ribbon collapse or display options is actually very useful if you don't have enough space to use in your screen. By clicking on it, you can hide these commands, thus creating more space for you to work on. Let's say you want to bring it back. You click on these three dots and click on the ribbon display option again, and then it will appear. But if you let go like this and you start working, it is going to disappear again. The only way to make it permanent, now that you've removed it initially, is to click on the ribbon display option and then click on Show Tabs and Commands. Then it will reappear and stay where it is. Before we continue the exploration of the user interface, I want you to click on the different tabs, take notice of the different command groups and the different commands there. You don't have to do anything, just notice that they're there. All right, I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. Now we're going to talk about the Quick Access Toolbar. The Quick Access Toolbar, as the name implies, is a set of tools that we reference for quick use. The Quick Access Toolbar is located at the top right hand corner of the screen. Right now, I have the Save command, the Redo command, the Create New Document command, and the Undo command as part of my Quick Access Toolbar. But I can customize this. I can make changes to what is available for me here by clicking on this drop-down menu. For the most discerning, you would have noticed that the checked ones are correspondent to the commands on my Quick Access Toolbar. Thus, if we uncheck any one of these commands here, they will disappear from our Quick Access Toolbar. To bring it back, we click on it again to check it, and it does reappear. Now, what if you want to bring in something that wasn't there before? Let's say the Open command. All we have to do is to click on the Open command and it will reappear. To remove it, uncheck it. Now, you may look and say, okay man, this is easy. You know, I can see what is going on here. The problem is, what if I'm looking for something that is not right here, that I can't see? That is when you go to More Commands. If you click on More Commands, you are presented with this Excel Options dialog box, something that we've seen before. In this dialog box, you can choose additional commands to add to your quick access toolbar by selecting quick access toolbar here and then scrolling to find the command that you want to ask, click on it and have it added to this section here, which represents your quick access toolbar. Let's say, for example, we look at our screen and say, so I want the strike through command to be part of my quick access toolbar. Thus, let's look for it here. Now that we've opened more commands, we go to S because it's alphabetized. However, there is no strike through here. What is going on? Well, the simple answer is that we are looking under popular commands, and Excel does not consider strike through to be a popular command. That is why you don't see it here. So in order to get to that command, we click on this drop down menu here and select all commands. All commands will give us access to all commands that we can use for this application. They are all alphabetized, so we scroll down to the S section to find strike through right here. By clicking on it and clicking the add button, we can bring it over here. If we want to remove it, we just have to click remove. We can also double click to bring it into the quick access toolbar. But when you look up here, it's still not there. You may be wondering, why is that the case? The reason is because we have not confirmed our selection. In order to do that, we have to click OK. However, before we do that, let me say that you can reset the arrangement or the configuration of your quick access toolbar by clicking on the reset. That will take you back to the default settings. Another thing to note here is that when you make changes here or you're customizing your quick access toolbar, by default it applies to all documents that you ever open. If you don't want it to apply to all documents, you can select the current workbook. For us, which is book 1. If I click this, the changes that I make here will only apply to this book 1 that we're currently working on. So let's effect our changes by clicking on OK. Now we see the strike through command is added here. The other thing I want to show you here is the search button here. By clicking on the search button, we are presented with a chance to save to the cloud. Here we can then be able to collaborate and share with other people through varieties of means. Next, we look at the taskbar. At the bottom here, we see the different views of Excel. Right now we're in the normal view. We can go to the page layout view and the page break preview. Let's go back. We can also we can zoom in and we can zoom out. All right, so these are the different things that you can do down here. Another thing to note here is that you can actually add additional sheets here by clicking on the plus sign. Now we have sheet 2 and the previous one is now sheet 1. Now let's talk about this big screen, the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is comprised of columns and rows. The columns are represented by the alphabets A, B, C, and so on. And the rows are represented by the numbers downward. The intersection between the column and the row is the cell. The cell is represented by the cell map. So in order for you to know where you are on the screen, you can either try to figure out, for example, let's say I click right here now, I can say, oh, this is column D and row 16. And if you look at the cell map, it tells us D16. It's easier when you're closer to the top right hand corner to be able to figure out where you are in your spreadsheet by looking at the column and the row. It becomes a lot more difficult as you go out. Let's say you are somewhere around here. it's very difficult to be able to narrowly gauge where you are. So there's no need to do that. You just look at the cell map here and it tells you where you are. Right now, we are AK44, column AK, row 44. Okay? The next thing to talk about here is the formula bar. The formula bar also represents the content of the cell. Let's say, for example, we type in data here. This cell here, cell N31, has the content data, and that is also contained in the formula bar. There's also the insert functions button here to consider. By clicking on the insert functions button, we can summon the different formulas and functions of Excel, something we're going to be doing pretty much later. All right, so that is the Excel user interface. I want you to take a second to sort of go over again what we've gone through in this lesson. We've talked about the share button. We looked at the quick access toolbar, the formula bar, and the insert functions. Take a review of what we did and meet us on the other side. Hello, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to continue with navigation. Navigation essentially means moving around the spreadsheet. We have talked about different ways that you can use the commands and tools. One way to expand or decrease your screen space is to use the scroll bar. Scroll bar, you can scroll up or you can scroll down to expand it. You can also scroll sideways, right? And you can scroll left. By now, I trust that you know that by clicking on the different cells, you can move around the different cells. One thing to mention here though, it is not only by clicking that you can move around. You can also move around the different cells by using the 4 arrows in your keyboard. The right arrow will move to the right. The left arrow will move to the left. The up arrow will move upward. And the down arrow will move downward. If, for example, you want to know how far can you move downward, right? How far can you go by moving downward? Well, you can click your downward arrow for a very long time and at the end of the day get to where you want to go, or you can use the shortcut. Shortcut often makes you to get around tedious tasks by being able to do them very, very quickly. A shortcut for getting to the end of the row, the very last row, is you hold down your control key and you press the downward arrow. That takes you to the very last row, which is 1,048,576. That is row 1,048,576. You might be asking, how do we get back up? Well, there's a shortcut for that. Click on the control key and press the home key on your keyboard and it takes you to the very first cell, cell A1. Now that we've been to the end of the row and back, how about the end of the column? What is the very last column? To get to the very last column, you could do the same thing that we tried to do before by clicking on the right arrow and keep going and going. Well, as you can tell, that's probably going to take you forever. So there's a shortcut for that too. In this case, we press down the control key and we press the right arrow. And that takes us to the very end of the last column. That column is column XFD. The last row was row 1,048,576. And the last column at the very end of Excel is column XFD. Now that we've seen the length and the breadth of Excel, what else can we do here? Perhaps now is the time to look at the other different shortcuts. Shortcuts in Excel, like any other Microsoft applications, are numerous. They're so numerous, it is very difficult to memorize them. One way to know what shortcut to use sometimes is to hover over a command. When you hover over a command, for example, it gives you two things. Let's say bold. I hover over the command bold, leave my cursor there. It tells me that this is bold and that the shortcut for bold is Control B. Then it also gives me a tooltip. A tooltip is an instruction on what a command does. For example, in the case of bold, it makes your text bold. How about italic? Let's put our cursor there. The shortcut is Ctrl I, and the tooltip says it italicizes your text. Underline, same thing. The shortcut is Ctrl U. Tooltip, underline your text. Now, not every command will give you this. Many will give you the tooltip, but not all of them will provide you with the shortcut. But many of the frequently used commands does have shortcut. Now let's go to the Insert tab and find link. Let's place our cursor there. It tells us here what the shortcut to hyperlink is, and also gives us a tool tip on what and how this can be used. I did say before that shortcuts are numerous and it can be very difficult to memorize them, but there are frequently used shortcuts that should be memorized. For example, Ctrl N. In order to create a new document, if you press Ctrl and you press the N button on your keyboard, it provides you with a new workbook. Right now it's Workbook 3. Right? The previous one we were was Workbook 1. And the one we just created is Workbook 3. Well, it's saying Workbook 3 because I previously created Workbook 2, so it's assuming that's still in play. In any case, to create a new document, you press your Control key, hold it, and click on the N button on your keyboard, and there you have another workbook. So let's close this. Let's close this. So we have just done save. So we have just one on the screen. How about if we want to open an already existing workbook? Something we'll be working on is already saved and closed. If we want to open it with a shortcut, we click on the Control and we'll press the Home button. Then we can go back to what we saw in the backstage of Excel and either find it in our recently opened workbook, or we can go to our OneDrive or check this PC or browse our computer to find the location. Another useful shortcut is Ctrl C. Ctrl C is to copy. Let's say I have the word data here and I want to have it in several other places. I can click on it, right click and copy. That would do, and then paste. Right? But I do not want to do too many clicks. I want to use a shortcut. If I highlight it by clicking on it, if I click Ctrl C, you see the highlights around the text. That shows you it's been copied. Then I can paste somewhere else by clicking over there and then clicking on Ctrl V to paste. Okay? I can paste as many as I like by using the shortcut Ctrl V. Ctrl C to copy and Ctrl V to paste. Okay, I've made a mess here. There's so many things going on here. I want to undo this. There are two ways to undo. I can click on the undo button right here because we placed this here in our quick access toolbar, remember earlier? Or I can use a shortcut. Since we're talking about shortcuts, so let's use a shortcut. The shortcut for undo is Ctrl Z. That was the last item pasted. Let's undo the next one. Let's undo the other one. Undo the other one. Undo that. Undo that. And undo that. So to reiterate, in order to know what a shortcut is for frequently used commands, you can hover your cursor around it and then you can see what the shortcut is in order for you to remember, and also the tooltip. The shortcut for creating a new Excel document or workbook is Ctrl N. The shortcut to open an existing workbook, something that you've been working on, is Ctrl O. The shortcut to copy is Ctrl N. The shortcut to paste is Ctrl V. And the shortcut to undo the things that you've done is Ctrl Z. Now, I have one more thing to show you before I move on to the next lesson. The shortcut to save as is F12. F12. If you're saving for the first time your work with a different name and Excel type, or as well as change the location, the shortcut is F12. F12 is the shortcut for save as. If I press S12, it brings me this dialog box that allows me to find a location, to select a location to save my work. It also gives me an opportunity to save my file with a name. Let's say Excel 2016 navigation. Okay, so we can save it as that. And the last thing we can also do here is that we can save it as a specific type. The default is saved as Excel Workbook, but that's not the only thing we can do. We can also save by many other types, including saving as PDF, CSV, text format, and most importantly for me is you can save as Excel 97 to 2003, which is an old version of Excel. As I mentioned earlier, this is important if you're going to be sharing your work with people that use older version of Excel. Let's cancel that. All right, so here we go. Now we know how to move around Excel and how to use some frequently used shortcuts. I want to talk to you about something very powerful in Excel, the Smart Lookup. The Smart Lookup is Microsoft flexing its search engine muscle. Without much talking, let's just go ahead and see, and let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's say we type APR. For most of you accounting students, you probably already know what this means, but for the rest of us humans, this might seem like something from the sky. But Excel can help us find out the meaning. If we right click on it, and then right click and click and find Smart Lookup, we can click on that, and Excel with the search engine can tell us what APR means. It says here, abbreviation, annual or annualized percentage rate, typically of interest on loans and credit. There are other search results here, but the annual percentage rate is definitely the one to go with. How about we try something else? Maybe CPI. Let's try CPI. CPI. Okay, right click, Smart Lookup. What does this stand for? Not the Communist Party of India, definitely not. If we're talking about business related concepts, I'm sure it is Consumer Price Index. I think the point to note here is that when you use a search engine, you have to have some idea of what you are expecting. So the search result will provide you with so many things, but it's up to you to be able to analyze the data and figure out what you're looking for. For us, since we're searching for business related terms in Excel, it is expected that we know that Consumer Price Index is abbreviated for CPI. If we're looking for concept related to international politics or politics in India, then probably Communist Party of India will make sense. Let's try one more. Something simpler this time. GDP. Okay, what does this stand for? Smart Lookup. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. There's no mistake in this. All the search results that we have indicates that. Okay, so we'll be searching for acronyms. How about we search for the name of a person? Well, let's try Bill Gates. Okay, so will Smart Lookup be able to help us here? Let's see. Smart Lookup. There you go. Bill Gates. William Henry Gates III is an American business magnate. Yada, 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 yada. You can read the rest for yourself. But the point here is that we are able to use the Smart Lookup not only to search for acronyms or abbreviations, we are also able to use it to search for names. All right. The last thing I want to talk about in this lesson is the search bar. Is this powerful search bar. Tell me what you want to do. I talked about how the Smart Lookup has been very useful. It does work in tandem with the search bar here. Let me type Bill Gates here, for example. Bill Gates, and then Smart Lookup on Bill Gates, and it gives me exactly the same information that we had before. But the most important use of this search bar is to search for commands and tools. Let's say insert. I'm able to use this to search for insert. Now it's asking me, what do you want to insert? I can click on this drop down to specifically identify what I want to insert. I can insert cells, sheet rows, sheet columns, or sheet. So let's just insert sheet columns. There you go. You see there's now one between AP arrow and CPI because my cursor was placed there. So let's do that again. Let's undo, Ctrl Z. All right, this is where my cursor is right now. So let's go get an insert a row. So click on this and insert column. There you go. So this is a game changer. This is very, very helpful. If you don't know how and where to find a particular command and you know what the name of the command is, all you have to do is to come to this search bar that is called tell me what you want to do, type the name of the command, and it will bring it up for you. All right, so I want you to play around with this a little bit and then meet us on the other side. Welcome back to Excel 2016 tutorial. Now we get to the fun part. Now we get to the part where we have to enter data into Excel as well as manipulate those data. This is where Excel stands out from every other Microsoft application. So we are going to create an imaginary company, a bookstore. We are going to call it Treasure Notes. Our company is called Treasure Notes. How quaint. Anyways, now we're going to enter the items that we sell in the store. What do we have in the store? We have books, because it's a bookstore. We have toys. Many bookstores carry toys now. We have t-shirts. What else do we find in a bookstore? How about printing papers? Gifts. Okay, these are enough for now. So now the next step is to determine how much these items are sold. What is the price? For the sake of this tutorial, we're going to assume that we are only selling one kind of book, one kind of toy, one type of t-shirt, one specific type of printing papers, and just one type of gift. So the price is going to be similar for all books, similar for all toys, similar for t-shirts and all the other items. So for books, how about we say it is $12? Okay. All right. It says 12. How do we make that into currency? In order to do that, there are two ways to do it. The first way is to right click on it and hit Format Cell. And here you can go down to currency. You can see it is being pre-formatted here. This is the sample what you get, $12 with the dollar sign, and here you have how many decimal places after the actual amount. Here it says 2 decimal places. So we're just going to go ahead and click OK so you see what we mean. Okay, so how about the toys? Toys are going to be $11. Again, the same thing happens. So you know what? We can't keep going back and forth to change the number to currency. So what we are going to do is to make sure we pre-format this whole cell. Whenever we enter a number, Excel will know that we are talking about currency. So let's do that using the other tools under the Home tab. If we go to this general, click on the drop down menu and find currency, there you have it. So now if we enter the price for t-shirts, which is $14, automatically it becomes $14. We didn't have to go through that process again. What about printing papers? Let's say that's $24, and gift, let's say that's $18. Okay, now there are a couple of things we need to take note of here, and one is the fact that, let's make this a little bit bigger. One is the fact that, first of all, you see the text treasure notes runs across column A and B. The reason is because we do not have any text here in B1. If we decide to type something here now, maybe anything, you see that B1 will has its own text, but the text running from A1 will become invisible in some part. So let me delete that. So how do we make these changes? We can increase column A to accommodate the length of treasure notes. And as you can see, printing papers, which was also hidden some parts, has also been made visible. We can do that. All right. And the other thing we can do, let me just go back for a little bit. The other thing we can do is to put our cursor in the line between A and B and then double click. I always prefer to use the other method. Let me undo that. I always prefer to use the method of actually holding and shifting the line, because to me it is more precise. I said this is a bookstore, so treasure notes bookstore. However, we only type treasure notes here. In order to make changes to the text, I can click on it and start to type. It will wipe out whatever I had in there before, but that's not what I want, so let me undo that. What I want to do is to edit it. So there is a shortcut for that, and it's the F2 button. By pressing the F2 button, I can begin to type, and by adding bookstore. So now we have bookstore. All right, so that is how to edit that, by using the F2 key. All right, so we have the name of our bookstore, we have our items, and we have the price for each item. So what is the duration of our sales? So we're looking at the first 4 months of the year. How about we look at month 1? Now I can keep on typing month 2, month 3, month 4, but there's another way I can do that. And I'm going to use something called autofill. So watch this. If I put my cursor here, right now, look at the cursor very carefully. The cursor is a white fat cross, or fat white cross, English. But if I put my cursor right on the cusp of that, on the edge of that little square, it changes to the black cross. Once I have that, I click and hold and drag. See, month 2, month 3, and month 4. There you have it. So instead of me having to type month 1, month 2, month 3, I just have to use the autofill to fill out the remaining months. This works because Excel knows that after month 1, or number 1, the next number is 2, and the next number is 3, and so on and so forth. So now let's enter the other data to reflect how much we are selling for each of these items in these 4 months. Okay, all right, welcome back. I've been able to enter the data we need for this lesson. As you can see, these are the data for each of the months, month 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the task for this lesson is to sum these numbers. How much for the first month? the second month, the third month, and the fourth month. How much was this? So we can use a simple formula called the Autosum. By clicking on the cell that I want the total number to appear, I can click on that cell, and if I go to my Home tab and go over to the right hand side, there is a formula called Autosum. If I click on it, Excel selects all the numbers. This is always fascinating to me. It knows exactly what numbers to select or what cells to include in the summation. It did not include cell C3 because that is not part of what we want to calculate. Alright, so the next thing to do is to just press the Enter key. By pressing the Enter key, Excel actually calculates the total number of sales for month 1. So let's do the same for month 2. There is another way to do this, and that is by clicking on the cell that you want to start from and holding your cursor, hold it down and drag and get to the cell where you want the total number to appear. In this case, cell D9. So now if I go ahead and click the Autosum key, Excel puts the number, calculates it, and puts the number in that specific cell that was empty just before the numbers. So I've shown you two ways of doing this. You can just click on the cell where you want the total number to appear and click Autosum. Excel will do the selection for you, or you can select the cells yourself. All right, but we don't want to do that for every summation that we want to do. Since we've already had some calculations done, we can go back to our favorite tool and use the autofill. So if I drag this now to the right, I autofill for month 3 and I autofill for month 4. There you go. So now we have the total for month 1, month 2, month 3, and month 4. Being able to make now we've been able to find the totals for each of the months. How about we find the total for each of the items sold for the 4 months? So we're going to try the first method that we did before by placing the cursor here and then clicking on Autosum. Unfortunately, there is an error here. For you who have been paying a lot of attention, you'll notice that price is selected as part of the unit sold. That is not right. So let's delete this. Unfortunately, it can be a little bit tricky to delete. Usually what I do, I place my cursor on the formula bar and then delete from there and everything is gone. So let's try the second method that we did by actually selecting the months and stopping at the cell where we want the total to be and going ahead to click Autosum. There we have it. We can do the same for each of the months. Autosum. Another way that we can do this is by using the equal sign, which is mostly what people use. If I use the equal sign, if I open parentheses, and I can select the sum that the numbers that I want, and then close parentheses, and then enter. There I have my total units sold for t-shirts. Let's try that again. Enter the equal sign, sum, because we're adding, open parentheses, and then select the cells that I want to include, close parentheses, and then enter. Then I have that. So I'm going to do that one more time again. Do that again. So I'm going to do that again by clicking the equal sign, enter the sum formula, open parentheses, and then selecting the cells, closing parentheses, and then enter. Okay, so now we have the total units sold for each of the item. The next task is to look at the actual amount that we made. What is the subtotal? What is the amount that we made for each month? We can do that by multiplying this cell with the price. So for example, if we put the equal sign and we select cell B4, multiply by G4, and we press enter, we have our amount there. So I'm going to repeat that for the other amount. So we have the price cell for toys equals B5 multiplied by G5. Enter. B6 multiplied by G6. B7 multiplied by G7. Plus sign B8 multiplied by G8. The beauty of this system is that whenever we change anything here, it is reflected in the subtotal. Let's say, for example, the price of toys have changed to $13. You see that the subtotal also changes. Let's also say that maybe we made an error for the price of for the quantity of printing paper sold in month 3. Let's say instead of 57, it is now 60. You can see everything changes as well. To get the total amount that we made, that we sold, we can use the Autosum here as well by using the Autosumming formula. So overall, we sold 54,297. We're not doing badly at all. This is good. This is good. Meet me on the other side while we continue with this lesson. In this lesson, we're going to look at how to calculate the average for each unit. In the previous lesson, we looked at how to use the Autosum formula to calculate the monthly sales for each of the items. In this lesson, we're going to focus on calculating the average for each item. So let's get started. In order to do that, for each item, we click at the cell where we want the average number to be imputed. For example, for books, we will click on cell D13. So now that we've selected the cell, the next thing to do is to type in the equal sign, average, and then select the sales for the 4 months and then enter. If you noticed what I did here, in the previous ones, when I enter the equal sign and then the formula for sum, I manually opened parentheses. In this case, however, I double clicked the formula once it appears. Let me show you what I mean. Equal sign, average. This is the calculation for toys, average. You can see that here Excel has pre-populated the screen with what it thinks we are looking for, the formula it thinks, or the functions it thinks we are looking for. So I'm going to double click on average, and that not only brings up the average function, it also opens the parentheses. So all I have to do now for toys is to select the cells that I want to include, which is toys month 1 to 4. Now I'll click enter to finish the calculation. There you go. So why don't you give it a try and do the same for the other items. Okay, welcome back. Now we have filled in the average monthly sales for each of the items. It's something I need you to take a note of here. If I click on this cell, for example, by clicking on one of these cells, you can take a look at the formula bar to see the formulas or the functions behind the calculation. Right now it says equals sign, average, open parentheses, cell C4 to F4, close parentheses. If I do that for these other cells, you notice the same thing. So behind each of these numbers, the formula for calculating the average, or the function for calculating the average, is displayed in the formula bar. Moving forward, let's assume we have made a monumental mistake. There was a particular item that we sell at the Treasure Notes bookstore that we did not add. Now we need to add that. How do we do that? The way to add rows or columns is basically the same thing. There are two ways to do it. The first is the easier way. If you click on, let's say, t-shirts, and you right click beside it, you see the insert button here. If you click on it, it inserts above the cell that you clicked. Let's undo that again. Another way to do it is to go to the Home tab and move to your right hand side, find Insert, and then click what you want to insert. You can either insert sheet rows, because that's select, or sheet column, because the rows are selected right now, so it is graying out sheet columns and giving me the choice to either insert cells or insert sheet rows. So let's insert sheet rows. The same result happens. So we sell a lot of mugs, so we're going to add mugs as a separate line here, and we usually sell them for $9. You can see that as I inputted $9, it took the currency format that we did earlier. That is because this row that we inserted is between the area that was covered with the currency formatting. So how about we input any data here to reflect how many items we sold for the month. We sell a lot of mugs. These are really doing very well. Let's say 341 for month 1, 305 for month 2, 311 for month 3, and 321 for month 4. If you are paying attention, you would have noticed that the monthly values have also changed. The totals for each of the month has also changed. All right, so now the only thing that has not changed here is the formulas, because we have to manually use the autofill to fill out the units sold here. So let's do that. There you go. So now we have the total units sold for mugs for the 4 months at 1,278. Again, to calculate the subtotal, if you remember this correctly, we did the equal sign, and then we multiply the cells that we are interested in. So which is cell B6 multiplied by G6. Enter. There we have our number. And also, if you notice, also the total number also changed here. Okay, one thing that we should have done earlier, but we can do it now anyways, the total units sold for all the products, as well as the total units sold looking at the month, we can impute that here. So in order to do that, we can either use this number, equal sign, sum double click, and then we can either select these numbers or select these numbers. It will be the same. So let's do that. Enter. There you go. Okay, if you don't believe me, let's undo that and then use this number, equal sign sum, double click to open the parentheses, and then select this number and enter. There you go, 4,871. Okay, now we know how to insert rows. How about inserting columns? So it is basically the same thing. We're going to select the first row, and then we're going to right click and click insert. See what happens here? We have a column inserted before the items. So how about if we want to insert two rows at the same time? What we have to do is to select two columns at the same time. Now let's use the other method. Go to the Home tab and find Insert button here and select Insert Columns. Now we have two columns inserted. Let me give you a chance to play with this a little bit and join me on the other side. Hello, in this lesson we're going to look at how to make the data a little bit more visually appealing. We've done the calculations, we presented our data, and it all looks good and accurate. But in terms of presentation, it doesn't look as appealing as I would like it to be. Let's start with the title. The title, for example, is in D1. But what I want to do is to make it span the whole length of the data from A1 all the way to K1. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to the Home tab and find styles, the styles command group, and click on the drop down there. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for title. So I click on that. There you go. And the next thing I want to do is the heading for the various categories all the way from feedback to taxes. I want to make that a particular kind of heading. So I'm going to go back to Set Styles and find there are 4 different heading styles here. It's heading 1. I'm hovering right now. Heading 2, 3, and 4. I think maybe 3 is a little bit better. It's not too pronounced. It's also conspicuous enough to identify the title. So I'm going to click on 3. And the next thing I want to do is to make sure that whoever is looking at this knows the area where data can be imputed. So this whole area right here where the data is likely to change, I want to make that, I want to differentiate that by making it as input. There you go. And as for the total units and subtotal and taxes, I want to make those as perhaps output, or maybe I can make them calculation. I'll rather use output right here. Okay, as for the total, I'm going to highlight all that and go back to the cell style and find total here. Okay, so in terms of the heading, I'm going to do the same for average unit sold. I'm going to merge. I'm going to make that as heading. Heading 3, maybe heading 4. Okay. One thing I ought to have done with the title is to merge and center it. I forgot to do that, so let's go back and do that now. To merge and center, you select it and you come to the Home tab and find Merge and Center. So now it is centered. I'm going to do the same thing with the average unit, Merge and Center. Now what happens is that this title and the heading now span across the length of the data. Okay, so what else we have to do here? Let's see, price. We can make that, give that a different sort of maybe accent, be a little bit lighter, and Monday to Sunday, do the same thing there, a little bit. Actually, perhaps use a green accent. And as for the items, so we also can make that perhaps this accent. And here you can do whatever you want here, it's up to you. I'm just showing you the different places to get the command. And as for the date, we can make that also select perhaps accent 3. For the books here, we're going to give it the same accent as the items up there. And as for here, we're going to give it output. There you go. This is looking really nice now. And as for these two here, perhaps we'll leave that as is. So what we've done so far is to make sure that we use the different sections to represent, to change the different sections to represent different things using the cell styling, which is a pre-formatted, which is a default styling created by Excel. This is important because we could have done this manually. I could have, for example, come here, let's just select that, go to the Home tab, find, maybe increase the font and all of that and change it. However, if I do that, I won't be able to take much advantage of the theme, of the Office theme. Now, because I use the cell style, I can come to the Office theme right here on the Page Layout tab and click on this. I can begin to, if I am hovering right now, you see as I hover, these different theme colors and font are changed because it's working with the cell style command group. See that? I could also, for example, before I do that, under the theme here, I can change the color a little bit and maybe change that color to something a little bit. See, as I hover, you can see all the different changes that is being shown here. However, I like it the way it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change, this is the Office theme right now. I'm going to maybe change it to gallery or integral. I'm looking for something not too pronounced. How about retrospect? No, let's do Office. Okay, so now we have Office. So the next thing to do is to save this as a theme. How do we do that? If we come down here, we can click on Save Current Theme. I'm going to click on that. This is actually very important. It's going to direct me to the document themes under the Microsoft template. Do not navigate out of this location, because whenever you're looking for this is the only place that Microsoft will look at when you intend to use this theme a little bit later. How about I call this TRO, all caps, pressure notes themes or theme, and I'm going to save it as an Office save it as an office theme. Okay, so the point is that we can use this particular theme that we constructed ourselves for later use. And in order to find it, if we click on page layout and go to themes, we find our theme right here, treasure notes theme. So which means we can use this particular theme for future or any other theme as we desire. All right, so play with this a little bit and then join me on the other side. In previous lesson, I showed you how to use the style command under the home tab to sort of change the sections of your work, and also how to create a personalized theme that you can use for later projects. In this lesson, however, I'm going to show you how to create a template out of this. For example, if this is something that you're going to be doing in a recurrent basis, you don't want to do all this design all over again all the time. So what you want to do is to create a template that allows you to change the input for whenever you need. By that I mean create a template that allows you to repurpose this particular design for future use. So I am going to delete some of this. I'm going to delete all the input value because let's assume that this is something that's going to change. Delete. And perhaps also delete the dates. And I'm going to leave the price, though this can also be considered an input value because it can change depending on your store or the price of materials. But for now, let's leave this. So what we want to do now is to save this as a template. In order to do that, we're going to go to the File tab and find Save As. Or we'll save it on Excel Tutorial 2016, and I'm going to call this Excel Treasure Notes Templates. Okay, so the last thing to do here is to make sure you save it as a template. If I go ahead and click Save now, it won't be saved as a template. It will be saved as Excel Workbook. See here, Save as Type, Excel Workbook. That's the default. So we have to click on this drop down to find the other ways that you can save Excel. We talked about this earlier, but in this particular lesson, we're looking to save as Excel template. Let's see, can I find that? Excel template right here. So I'm going to click on that. And again, it takes me to the custom office templates, just like we did with Teams. So do not navigate out of here, because whenever Excel is looking for templates, if you call it for a project, it is only going to come here to look for it. So make sure you save it under Document, Custom Office Templates. If that is not what is presented to you when you're saving a template, find a way to navigate to this location. Okay, but often this is where it's going to take you to when you try to save a template. All right, so I'm going to click Save. Now, this is something wonderful. If you look at the top here, it now says Excel Treasure Notes Template. Interesting. So what happens now, if I close this, I can just come here and make changes and repurpose this template, and I don't have to do all the other things that I did at the beginning of these lessons. So let's close this, for example, and then let's open Excel. Remember this this startup screen. Now something new has happened here. Initially, we only have this template and that was it. But now it shows us featured template, and in addition to that, it shows us personal. So our template that we created, obviously, is not going to be part of the featured Microsoft templates. It's going to be personal. So if we click on personal, we find our template. If I click on this now, yes, it gives me not the template that I saved before, but a copy of it. So instead of Excel Treasure Notes template, I have Excel Treasure Notes template 1. Just like when you create a workbook, it gives you Excel workbook 1, workbook 2, 3, and so on. So I can make changes to this now if I want, and then save it as something else. Let's say, for example, we're just going to input various data here. Okay. Notice the changes that is happening with the numbers. Okay. I'm going to pause so I notice as I am changing numbers, you can see that not only the total units, the subtotal and the taxes are changing, the average units are also changing. There you go. There you go. So I have successfully repurposed the template that we saved and imputed new numbers. I can do the date as well if I want to. Okay, so let's say we have October 22, 2022. So I'm going to use the autofill to fill it out, and that's it. That's it. I've been able to repurpose this template to meet my needs. I can use this again and again and again. All right, I want you to practice saving your template and then open it again and see how it works for you. All right, thank you, and I'll meet you on the other side. Hello, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to look at a couple of things, starting with duplicating sheet. Right now, we only have in this workbook one sheet, sheet 1. Let's say, for example, we decided to take Treasure Notes Bookstore International. We want to have a location in Toronto, let's say Lagos and Milan. And we want to create 3 different sheets within this workbook for each of the locations. We could create, by going down to the bottom here, this plus sign, click on it to create a sheet, and then perhaps copy and paste here, or we could just start all over and start typing. Both methods are a little bit inefficient, so I'm going to delete this for a second. What we want to do is to duplicate this. So let's see how that is done. There are 2 ways to do that. So as I was saying, if I decide to make a duplicate of this, what I will have to do is to right click on sheet 1 down here, right click, and click move or copy, and then select move to end, or check create a copy, and then OK. And then what happens now, I have a duplicate of the first sheet. I can do that again. Let's do this again, move or copy one more time, and select move to the end, create a copy, OK. So I have 3 separate sheets of similar data. So what I want to do now is to rename all of them. To rename, I'm going to click on, actually, before I do that, let me show you one more way of creating a duplicate. If I click on the sheet that I want to duplicate and I hold down my control key, I can drag to the right, and then as you see there, I've created additional sheet. Okay, we only need 3 sheets for now, so I'm going to delete this. Yes. Now to rename, I'll call this Toronto, and I'll call the next one, right click, rename, I'll call this Lagos, and the third one, rename, and I'll call this Milan. All right, there we go. Now we have 3 separate sheets under the same workbook, and they all have the data that we need for each of them. The reason why this is important is because I didn't want to start to create the data for each of the companies all over. All right, so another thing we can do here, let's say we want to make a change across board, across all the different sheets. We want to make a change that will reflect changes in all the different documents for each of our locations, Toronto, Lagos, and Milan. What we can do is to hold down a control key and select all of them, and then we can make our change. Let's say we want to change printing paper to duct tips. Okay, and then we also want to change the price to $17. Okay, so now let's see if that change is reflected in all of them. Okay, I'm going to click on Toronto, and you can see duct tips at $17. Lagos, duct tips $17, and Milan, Shaw, duct tips and $17. Now the next thing to look at here is to show you how to view this data. So we're talking about how to freeze pane. Freezing pane allows you to see a specific section of the data while you are scrolling. Let's say, for example, you want to see side by side the items against the unit sold. Of course, we can easily see here because the data is not a lot. But consider a situation where we have maybe month 1 to 12, and it's a lot of information on the screen. So that becomes very, very difficult to do. In any case, I will show you how to make sure that the unit sold or the subtotal is moved closer to the items so you can compare them side by side. All right, so what I want to do here is to click on the cell. Wherever I am on the cell, whichever cell is active, we freeze everything above and we freeze everything before. So this whole section will be frozen and this whole section will be frozen, so we can move this side as we want. So let's do that. Let's go to the View tab, I believe, and find the freeze panes. Click on the drop down menu and then click freeze panes. Now if I scroll, you see I can move my items closer to the book items. Now I know that how much I pay for taxes is 1,550. It's very easy for me to see. If I scroll back, I only just want the subtotal. I can easily tell. I can scroll all back to the way it was before. Now what I can also do now, let's say that's not what I want, it's all good, but I want to unfreeze what I just did. I can go back to the drop down menu on the freeze page and click on freeze pane. Now let me try to scroll again and see what happens. The freeze pane is gone. The other thing that you can do here is you can just go ahead without making any selection and go to freeze pane and click on freeze top row. If I do that and I try to scroll, see treasure notes book as the title will always remain. Let's go back and unfreeze that or freeze pane. So without freezing anything, let me scroll so that you see what happens. See, treasure note does not remain. It is scrolled into invisibility. Now another thing we can do is to freeze column. So freeze first column. If I click on that and I try to scroll to the right, the feedback column, column A, will always remain. Right? Okay. So now we know how to use the freeze pane icon. Let me unfreeze this. The next lesson I want to talk about is custom views. Freeze pane works. As you can see, it helps us to sort of compare certain aspects of our work side by side, but sometimes that's not enough. So we can then turn to something called custom views. Let's say, for example, we want to create different views for different people. So I'll show you what I mean. If we click on custom views, this dialog box comes up. We can click on add, and it wants us to name this view. This view right now, let's call it the original view because it has everything in it. Original view. Okay, and we click OK. So if we go to custom views again, you see now we have original view. All right, so let's do something else. Let's close this. Now we want to hide some sections of the work that we're doing, so we can only show a specific section. Let's say we want to show the items against the actual amount that we made, the subtotal. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on these two columns, the home tab, and find the format cell, and then look for visibility, click on this arrow, and then I'm going to hide column, and that column will be hidden. The next thing to do is to select column D to I, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Hide, go to visibility, and then click hide column. Now what I have here is the items. Let me make this a little bit bigger. The items, the subtotal, as well as the taxes that were paid. In some cases, this is all we need. If you are the accountant of the company, there are some instances where all that is needed from you is how much you made and what taxes did you pay. This is how to streamline that document so you can send to whoever is requesting it. But we're not done yet. So let's go to the View tab and go to Custom Views, and then create a new view. We call this the Account View, and click OK. All right, so now if we go back to Custom View, and we can toggle between Original View, Show, and then go back to Custom View again and go to Account View, Show. So we can move back and forth each of these two sections. So now let's go back to Custom Views, Original View, Show, and then continue to do our work. Okay, so let me allow you to catch up with me a little bit and then meet me on the other side. Okay, welcome back. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to spell check. In Microsoft Word, as you are typing, and some other Microsoft applications, as you are typing, if you make an error in spelling, it tells you right away, usually with a red line below it, to tell you that this spelling is incorrect. With Excel, it does not do that. You can initiate the spell check on your own by going to the Review tab and clicking on Spelling. Now, I have this dialog box and it's asking me, do you want to continue checking at the beginning of the sheet? Yes, I want to do that. The reason it's asking me is because my cursor is actually on a cell that is down here, not at the beginning. If I say no, it will only spell check everything below this active cell. But I want to check everything, so I'm going to say yes. The spelling right here, when I look up here, it says feedback. The C is missing. So there's a suggestion for the correct spelling here. So I'm going to go ahead and click change. That's corrected. And there's another one. There's units, total units sold. Instead of units with an S, I spelled units with a Z. So I'm going to select the correct one here and click change. There's also another one down here, Saturday. So instead of the A is missing in the day. So there's a suggestion here as well, Saturday, change. There you go. Now I'm being informed that I am good to go. So I'm going to click OK. That is how to use the spell check. Lastly, for this lesson, the last thing I want to show you here, we are going to presume that we are done with our work for now and we want to print this work. How do we set it up for printing? We can go to File, Print, and then print to PDF or send to a particular printer if we have one connected to our work. We can make some minor changes here. For example, print the entire workbook, or we can select an active area in the sheet to print, or we can print a specific selection if we've already done that. We can also change the orientation. We can select landscape or portrait. Right now it's portrait. We can select the type, letter type, tabloid, Lego, and we can change the margins a little bit here. But the point is that this is not the best place to make these changes. I'm going to go back and go to page layout, and I'm going to go down here, the page setup command. If you notice here, we can do most of the things that I just showed you in the print section under file. We can change our margins here as well. We can actually create a custom margin if we want. We can change our orientation, we can change the size, and so on. But I want to click on this little drop down here under the page setup command. Here is actually where you have all the information regarding setting up your print. If you've noticed already, orientation, we have portrait or landscape. We can choose either one here. We can adjust the scaling up to 100, which is right now is 76. We can make this 100, or we can fit to one page. Fitting to one page means that we squish everything into one page, irrespective of the size. What that means sometimes is that we can barely see what we've printed. So that is not always a good idea if you have a lot of information that is more than one page on your screen. So I'm going to click adjust to the normal size. Down here you can select the paper size, just like we saw before. You can select Lego. Lego is usually good if you have a document, if you're printing a document that is longer in length as opposed to in height. And if you're not sure what it looks like, if I click on Lego, I can click on print preview to see how it looks like, right? It doesn't cover everything. You can see that it covers most of it. Let's go back and go back to bring our dialog box. Sometimes you can change the quality of the print, but in this case I can. This is 600 dpi dot per inches. That tells you how thick the print will look on paper. 600 dpi is good enough, but in some cases you may be given the option to change this. Margins, we saw this before. You can, how much space between the text and the paper would you want to have? In the top side of the paper, the left side, the right side, and the bottom side. You can increase this. The default is 7 inches, but you can increase this. You can also center your document on the page. If I click on horizontally, you see what happens here. Vertically, if I remove that, see what happens. So play with this a little bit and see how it works. Header and footer. The header and footer, you can add information there that runs across all the documents. You can make it as a page 1 of something, page 1 of something. You can actually put the name of the store, let's say Milan, or if it's a confidential document, you can say confidential. The footer is the same thing. You have the same information. You can put them there as well. Okay, and the last thing I want to look at here is the area that you want to print. Let's say you only want to print the total units sold. I have to click on, so you have to click on the print area and then select the total units, total units sold, subtotal, and taxes, and it will be selected here. If I click print preview now, that's all I'm going to print. Okay, so that's how, once you've set this up, then you can go ahead to file and then print your document. I know this was a little bit long. I want you to go over everything. We started by looking at how to duplicate the different sheets and how to group them by selecting all of them and making changes that reflect all the sheets without having to do them one after the other. We also talked about how to freeze pane so you can only see certain sections of the document. We looked at custom views. We created new customs. We had the account view and the original view. And then we looked at how to spell check our document because Excel does not do it by default for us. And lastly, we looked at how to set our page for printing by going to the page layout and clicking on this drop down to select our parameters for printing. All right, this was a lengthy one. I wanted to go over it and meet me on the other side. Welcome back. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to password protect your workbook, as well as show you how to protect your worksheet and the different cells. In order to password protect your whole workbook, you go to the file menu and you click on the drop down here that says protect workbook, and there's so many things you can do here. You can click on the read only, which means if they open the workbook, they can't make any changes at all. They can only read and see what you've done. There are instances where that's useful. There are also instances where you will need a password. Maybe you actually want someone to be able to make changes to the workbook, but you only want people that you desire to be able to do so. So people that has a password should be the only ones that can make changes to the workbook. That is what we're going to focus on. In that case, you click on encrypt with a password. Note that you have to make sure you remember this password, because if you forget, you lock yourself out of your own workbook. That's definitely not good. So find something easy, something you can easily remember. In our case, we're going to use 1111. Okay, and we okay that. It's going to ask you to repeat the password 1111. Okay, so now our workbook is protected. If we close and let's close, it's going to ask us for the password. So thankfully we know what the password is, 1111, and okay. So here we're going to have our workbook opened back for us. So that is how to password protect your workbook. Okay, in case you need to remove the password, as you can see here, this is sort of yellowed out. It shows that a password is required. So if we click on encrypt the password, it's going to tell us to enter the password. In order to remove the password, all you have to do is to delete this and okay, and you can see that that yellowed out background is removed, which means there is no more password. Okay, so I want to show you how to protect a worksheet, but also within that worksheet, a section of it will be allowed for input of information. So let's say, for example, we have this customer credit record. We don't want anyone to be able to change the name of the company, these headers, the name of the customers, but we want qualified staff to be able to enter credit limit, sales rep, phone number, and all this information. So what we'll do here is to select this section, right click on it and click format cells, and then navigate to protection. Here you can see that it says locked, which means if we had protected the whole worksheet, this section will be locked as well. So let's uncheck this to remove the locked, to make it unlock, and then we click OK. All right, so now if we go to the review tab and click on protect worksheet, okay, so and click OK, this whole worksheet is protected now. If we try to change Orlando, for example, we are not able to do that. If we try to change Andy here, we are not able to do that. If we try to change any of this information, we are unable to do that. The only thing we can change are the credit limits, the sales rep, date, and phone number. So remember, this was 1,000. Let's do that. There you go. Sales rep, we can enter Richard Ricks. That works. And then the date, we can type in 4th of April 18, 2022. That should work. And for the phone number, we can enter 647 222 2222, and that worked too. Only this section that is unlocked will work within the protected sheet. How about if you want to remove the protection? It's actually very simple. All you have to do is go back to the review tab and click on the unprotected sheet, and therefore you can be able to make your changes if you want now. Okay, so let's undo that. All right, so that's how workbook protection, sheet protection works in Excel.